Moon Calls by Patricia Briggs. Chapter 8. As soon as roaming quit appearing on my phone, I called Z. "Who's this?" he answered. "Mercy," I told him. "Didn't tell me the part was for the vampire's bus," he said shortly. I rubbed my face. "I couldn't afford to pay them the percentage you were," I explained. "Not for the first time." In the Columbia Basin, which included Richmond, Kennewick, and Pasco, as well as the smaller surrounding towns like Burbank and West Richland, every business the vampires considered under their jurisdiction, meaning anyone touched by the supernatural who was too powerless to stand against them, paid them protection money. And yes, just like the mob, the vampires only protect you from themselves. They agreed I could repair their cars instead, and they paid me for the parts. That way they save face, and I only have to repair Stefan's bus on an occasional Mercedes or BMW. Stefan's not bad for a vampire. There was a growl from the seat beside me. "It's okay," Adam told Samuel. "We keep an eye on her, and she's right. Stefan's not bad for a vampire. Word is that he runs a little interference, so she's not bothered." I hadn't known any of the vampires had intended to bother me, or that Stefan would care enough to stop them. "I didn't know that," said Z, who obviously overheard Adam's comment. He hesitated. "Vampires are bad news, Mercy. The less you have to do with them, the better. And writing a check and mailing it every month is safer than dealing with them face to face." "I can't afford it," I told him again. "I'm still paying the bank and will be until I'm as old as you are." "Well, it doesn't matter," he said at last. "I didn't have to deal with them anyway." "Your new supply house sent the wrong part. I sent it back to them and called with a word to their sales manager. The right part should be here on Friday. Best he could do with Thanksgiving tomorrow." I called the number on the vampire's file and left a message. What kind of vampire plays the Scooby-Doo song on his answering machine? It was a rhetorical question because he continued, "And a woman came by and said that your Polizzi friend had sent her." I rubbed my forehead. I've forgotten about Tony's girl. "Did you figure out what's wrong with her car?" "Mercy," he snapped, insulting. "No, I meant, was it something worth fixing?" "Wiring harness is bad," he said. "Mercy," I grinned because I'd seen the effect the woman had on I'm married to my job, Tony. You like her?" I told him. Z grunted. "Did you give her a quote?" "Haven't talked to her yet," he said. She's got poor and proud written all over her. She wouldn't let me give her a lift, so she and her kids walked home. She doesn't have a phone number except a work phone." I laughed to myself. There's more than one reason that Z didn't have any kind of money the older Fae generally amass. "Well, I'm probably never going to be rich either." "Okay," I said. "What kind of deal are we talking about?" "I called the police," Z said. He knew what Tony's name was. He even liked him, though he did his best to hide it. He just disapproved of letting the human authorities get too close. He was right too, but I don't always follow the rules of wisdom. If I did, I wouldn't be hauling 2 werewolves in my van. "What did he say?" I asked. "He said that she has an older boy who's been looking for work after school." I let him say it. It was just too fun to listen to him squirm. He liked to play the gruff, nasty old man, but he had a marshmallow heart. "With my Tad gone, you're short a pair of hands." And with Mac dead, I almost lost interest in teasing the old gremlin. It's fine, Z. If you talk to her, you can tell her that her son can work off the bill. If he works out, I'll offer him Tad's job. Assume you already fixed the car?" "Ja," he said. "You'll have to talk to the lady yourself, though. Unless you need me tomorrow, too. She works day shift. No, I won't need you tomorrow. It's Thanksgiving. I'll leave the shop closed if you would remember to put a sign up in the window. No problem, he hesitated. I might have a lead for you on Jessie. I was just getting ready to call you. One of the Fae who was still hiding told me she might be able to help, but she wouldn't tell me without talking to you. Still in hiding meant either that the Grey Lords hadn't noticed her yet, or she had a terrible or powerful sort. This time it was Adam who growled. Such are the joys of trying to have a private phone call in the presence of werewolves. Somehow it didn't bother me so much when I was the eavesdropper. We're about an hour out of town, I said. Could you set up a meeting tonight at the place of her choice? All right, he said, and hung up. You caught all that? I asked him. Adam can't go, Samuel said firmly. No, Adam, you know it yourself. Adam sighed. All right, I even agree I'm not fit to be on my own, but I want Mercy there. We can call Daryl and... Samuel held up a hand. Mercy, he said, what caused you to bring Adam all the way to Montana rather than calling on his pack for help? It was stupid, I said. Maybe, but tell us anyway. I was trying to get in touch with Daryl, and I suddenly felt uneasy. I remembered a snippet of conversation between Ben and Daryl earlier that night, but in retrospect it wasn't much. What were Ben and Daryl doing talking to you? Asked Adam in a mild voice. He used a cousin people into thinking he wasn't angry. I can take care of myself, Adam, I told him. I was taking the trash out and ran into them. All Daryl did was tell Ben to leave me alone. He said, not now. And I don't know why I decided it meant that he knew something was going to happen. First you felt uneasy, said Samuel. Then you came up with the stupid reason. Yes, I felt my face flush. How do you feel about his pack now? I opened up my mouth and then shut it again. Damn it, something's wrong. I don't think Adam should go to the pack until he can defend himself. Samuel settled back with a smug smile. What? I asked. You noticed something, Adam said. A scent of something at my house that makes you think that someone from my pack is involved. Instincts. He sounded grim. I thought it was odd that they came so soon after my wolves left. I shook my head. Look, I don't know anything. We're not going to kill anyone, said Samuel. Not on the basis of your instincts, anyway. But what's the harm in being careful? Call your friend back. We'll see to his information tomorrow, when Adam has enough control to be on his own. No, said Adam. Damned if I will. I felt odd not arguing with Adam. The faster we find Jessie, the better. I can't be in two places at once, Samuel said, and I won't allow you to go out on your own and talk to who knows what kind of fae. We need to find Jessie, I said. My daughter comes first. Samuel twisted around to look at Adam. You have a dominant wolf in your pack that you trust? Someone not in the line to be pack leader? Warren. Adams, and I said his name in the same instant. Warren was my favorite of Adam's pack, and the only wolf whose company I sought out. I met him shortly after I moved to the Tri-Cities, before I even knew there was a pack in town. I hadn't met a werewolf since I'd left Montana, and I certainly hadn't expected to meet one working the night shift at the local stop and rob. He'd given me a wary look, but there were other people in the store, so he accepted my payment without a word. And I accepted my change with a nod and a smile. After that, we'd mostly ignored each other until the night a woman with a fresh shiner came to my store to pay for the gas her husband was pumping. She gave Warren the money, then took a firmer grip on the hand of the boy at her side, and Warren asked if she had a back door she can use. He smiled gently at her, and the shepherded and the two frightened people into the small office I've never noticed before at the back of the store, and he left me to watch the till and went out and had a short talk with the man at the pump. When he came back, he had $200 cash for her. Her husband drove away with a speed indicating with either terror or rage. Warren and I waited with the battered pair until the lady who ran the local women's shelter drove over to collect her newest clients. When they left, I turned to him and finally introduced myself. Warren was one of the good guys, a hero. He was also a lone wolf. It had taken him a while to trust me enough to tell me why. Perhaps in other ages and other places it wouldn't have mattered that he was gay. But most of the werewolves in power in the U.S. have been born in a time when homosexuality was anathema, even punishable by death in some places. One of my professors once told me that the last official act of the British monarch was when Queen Victoria refused to sign a law that made same-sex acts illegal. It would have made me think more highly of her, except the reason she objected was because she didn't believe women would do anything like that. Parliament revoked the law so it was specific to men, and she signed it. A tribute to enlightenment, Queen Victoria was not, neither as I have ever observed before, are werewolf packs. There was no question of Warren staying in the closet either, at least not among their other werewolves. As demonstrated by Adam and Samuel just a few hours ago, werewolves are very good at sensing arousal, not just smells but elevated temperature and increased heart rate. Arousal in werewolves tends to be bringing out the fighting instinct in all nearby males. Needless to say, a male wolf who is attracted to other male wolves gets in a lot of fights. It spoke volumes about Warren's fighting ability that he survived as long as he had. But a pack won't accept a wolf who causes too much trouble, so he spent his century of life cut off from his kind. It was I who introduced Adam and Warren. About the time Adam moved in behind me, I'd had Warren for dinner and we had been laughing about something. I forgot what, and one of Adam's wolves howled. I never forgotten the desolation in Warren's face. I heard it all the time when I was growing up. Wolves are meant to run in a pack, and I still don't understand it completely myself. But Warren's face taught me that being alone was no trivial thing for a wolf. The next morning I knocked on Adam's front door. He listened to me politely and then took a piece of paper with Warren's phone number on it. I left his house knowing I'd failed. And it was Warren who told me what happened next. Adam summoned Warren to his house and then interrogated him for a few hours. And at the end of it, Adam told Warren that he didn't care if a wolf wanted to screw ducks as long as he'd listen to orders. Not actually in those words. If Warren's grin as he told me about it was his accurate measure, Adam uses crudeness as he uses all of his weapons, seldom but with great effect. I suppose some people might think that odd of Warren as Adam's best friend, though Daryl is higher ranking. But they are heroes, both of them. Two peas in a pod. Well, except Adam isn't gay. The rest of the pack weren't all happy when Warren came in. It helped a little that most of Adam's wolves were even younger than he, and the last few decades have seen the vast improvement over a rigid Victorian era. Then, too, none of the pack wanted to take on Adam or Warren. Warren didn't care what the rest of the wolves thought, just that he had a place to belong. If Warren needed friends, he had me and he had Adam, and it was enough for him. Warren would never betray Adam. Without Adam, he would no longer have a pack. I'll give him a call, I said with relief. He picked up on the second ring. Warren here, is this you, Mercy? Where have you been? Do you know where Adam and Jesse are? Adam was hurt, I said. The people who did it took Jesse. Tell him not to let anyone else know, said Samuel. Who is that? Warren's tone was suddenly cool. Samuel, I told him. Brand's son. Is this a coup? Warren asked. No, answered Adam from the back seat. At least not on Brand's part. Excuse me, I said. But this is my phone call. Would you please pretend that this is a private conversation? That includes you, Warren. Quit listening to other people in my van. All right, agreed Warren. Having heard Adam, his voice relaxed into a usual, lovely South Texas drawl. How are you today, Mercy? He asked sweetly. But as he continued, his voice became gradually sharper. And have you heard the startling news about the Alpha's house was broken into, that his daughter disappeared, and the only clue is the phone message left on the damned Russian witch's phone? A message that she has refused to let anyone else listen to? Rumor has it the message is from you, and no one can find you either. Samuel leaned his head back, closed his eyes, and said, "Tell him you'll explain when we get there." I smiled sweetly. I'm doing better all the time, Warren. Thank you for asking. Montana is nice, but I don't recommend a November vacation unless you ski. Haven't put on ski for 20 years, murmured Warren, sounding a little happier. Has Adam taken up skiing during his jaunt of yours to Montana? He has skis, I said, but his health wasn't up to it at the time. I brought back a doctor, but the two of us found out that we need to go out tonight, and we're wondering if you were up for a little nursing. Glad to, said Warren. I don't work tonight anyway. Did you say Jesse's been kidnapped? Yes, and for it right now, we need to keep it under your hat. I drove by your house on the way back from work this morning, Warren said slowly. There's been a lot of activity there. I think it's just the pack watching. But if you want to avoid them, maybe you ought to spend the night at my place. You think it's the pack? Asked Adam. Warren snorted. Who'd call and talk to me about it? Darryl? Oreo called to tell me that you were missing, but without you, the women are mostly left to our business, too. The rest of the pack is supposed to be keeping eyes out for you, all three of you. But that's all I know. How do you keep them in the dark, for a day or two? Adam's voice was neutral, but the words would tell Warren all he needed to know. Come to my house. I don't think that anyone except you or Mercy even know where I live. I've got enough room for all of you, unless you were a couple of people who haven't spoken up. Each of the Tri-Cities has its own flavor, and it is Richmond that is the frenzy of the dawn of the nuclear age has pressed most firmly. When the government decided to build weapon-grade plutonium here, they had built a town too, so scattered over the city are 26 type buildings designed to house the workers for the nuclear industry. Each kind of house was given a letter designated beginning with A and ending with Z. I don't recognize them all, but the big duplexes and the A and B houses are pretty distinctive. The A houses look like some sort of Eastern farmhouses, 2-story rectangular and unadorned. B houses are single-story rectangles. Most of them have been changed a little from what they once were. Porch added, converted from duplexes to single-family dwellings, and then back again. And no matter how much they were renovated, they all have that sort of sturdy plainness that overcomes brick facades, decks, and cedar siding. Warren lived in a half a duplex with a big maple tree taking up most of his part of the front lawn, and he was waiting on his porch when I drove up. When I met him, he'd had a short, sort of a seedy, I've been there and done everything kind of look. His current lover had coaxed him into cutting his hair and improving his dress a little. His jeans didn't have holes in them, and his shirt had been ironed some time in the not-too-distant past. I was able to park directly in front of his home. As soon as I stopped, he hopped down the stairs and opened the van's sliding door. He took in Adam's condition in one swift glance. You say this happened right the night before last, he asked me. Yep. His accent is thick enough that sometimes I found myself falling into it, even though I'd never been to Texas. Warren stuck his thumbs in his pockets and rocked back on his heels of his battered cowboy boots. Well, boss, he drawled, I expect I ought to feel lucky you're alive. I feel lucky if you could see your way to helping me up, Adam growled. I bet I wasn't feeling too bad this morning, but this thing springs leave a lot to be desired. We can't all drive Mercedes, I said lightly, having got out myself. Warren, this is Brand's son, Dr. Samuel Korenick, who has come down to help. Warren and Samuel assessed each other like a pair of cowboys in their 50s, in the 50s movies. Then in response to some signal invisible to me, Samuel held out a hand and smiled. Good to meet you, he said. Warren didn't say anything but shook Samuel's hand once and looked as if he took pleasure in the other man's greeting. To Adam, Warren said, I'm afraid it'd be easier to carry you, boss. There's the front stairs, then there's the flight up to the bedrooms. Adam frowned unhappily but nodded. All right. Warren looked a little odd carrying Adam because, while not tall, Adam is wide, and Warren is built more along the lines of a marathon runner. And the kind of thing werewolves have to be careful not to do often in public. I opened the door for them but stayed in the living room while Warren continued up the stairs. Samuel waited with me. Warren's half of the duplex had more square footage than my trailer, but between the small rooms and the stairs, my house always felt bigger to me. He'd furnished the house comfortably with garage sale finds and bookcases filled eclectically with everything from scientific texts to worn paperbacks bearing thrift store price tags on their spines. Samuel had settled on the good side of the plush sofa and stretched out his legs, and I turned away from him and thumbed through the nearest bookcase. I could feel his gaze on my back, and I didn't know what he was thinking. Oh, mercy, he sighed in a soft voice. This one is pretty. Why aren't you flirting with him? I looked at the kitchen doorway to see Kyle, Warren's lover, leaning against the doorway in the kitchen of the typical Kyle pose, designed to show off his toned body and tailored clothes. The pose was deceptive, like Kyle's lowered eyelids and pouty Marilyn Monroe expression. It was designed to hide the intelligence that made him the highest-paying divorce attorney in town. He told me once that being openly gay was as good for his business as his reputation as a shark. Women in the middle of a divorce tend to prefer dealing with them, even over female lawyers. Samuel stiffened and gave me a hard look, and I knew what it meant. He didn't want a human involved in werewolf business. I ignored him. Unfortunately, Kyle didn't. He read the disapproval and mistook its cause. Good to see you, I said. This is an old friend visiting from Montana, and I didn't want to get too detailed because I thought it was up to Warren how much he told Kyle. This is Kyle Brooks. Kyle, meet Dr. Samuel Korenick. Kyle pushed himself off the door frame with his shoulders and strolled into the living room. He stopped to kiss me on the cheek and then sat down on the sofa as close to Samuel as he can get. It wasn't that he was interested in Samuel. He'd seen Samuel's disapproval and had decided to exact a little revenge. Warren usually retreated from the frowns of others or ignored them, but Kyle was a different kettle of fish entirely. He believed in making the bastards squirm. I'd like to say that he had a chip on his shoulder, but he had no way of knowing what it was, that it wasn't his sexual orientation causing Samuel's reaction. Warren hadn't told him he was a werewolf, and he was strongly discouraged to discuss the matter with anyone other than permanent mates. And to werewolves that meant male and female pairings, and the punishment for disobedience was harsh. Werewolves don't have jails, and people who break their laws are either punished physically or killed. To my relief, Samuel seemed more amused than offended by Kyle's blatant come on. When Warren came down the stairs, he paused a little at the side of Kyle's hand on Samuel's thigh. Then he started down again. His movements were easy and relaxed, but I could smell the tension rising in the air. He was not pleased, and I could tell that he was jealous or worried for his lover. He didn't know Samuel, but he knew better than most what the reaction of most werewolves would be. Kyle, it might be a good idea to take a few days to check out the state of your house. Warren's tone was even, but his drawl was gone. And Kyle had his own house, an expensive place up in one of the hills in West Switzerland, but he had moved in with Warren when Warren had refused to move in with him. At Warren's words, he stilled. I'm hiding someone for a few days, Warren explained. It's not illegal, but it won't be safe here until he's gone. Samuel might have turned invisible for all the attention Kyle paid him. Darling, if you don't want me around, I'm gone. I suppose I'll accept Gordy's invitation for Thanksgiving, shall I? It's just for a couple of days, said Warren, and his heart in his eyes. If you have something to do with what you've been so upset about the last couple of days. Warren glanced at Samuel and nodded once quickly. Kyle stared at him for a moment, then nodded back. All right, a couple of days and I'll leave my stuff here. I'll call you. You do that. Kyle left, closing the door behind him gently. You need to tell him, I urged. Tell him the whole thing or you're going to lose him. I like Kyle, but more than that, a blind person could have seen that Warren really loved him. Warren gave a pained half laugh. You think he'd be overjoyed to hear that he was sleeping with a monster? You think that would make everything okay? He shrugged and tried to pretend that it didn't matter. He'll leave me one way or another, Mercy. You graduated from Cornell and I worked nights in a gas station, hardly a match made in heaven. I've never seen that it bothered him, I said. He bends over backwards to keep you happy. Seems to me that you might give him a little something back. It's forbidden, Samuel said, but he sounded sad. You can't tell him. What do you think Kyle would do? I said indignantly. Tell everyone that Warren's a werewolf? Not Kyle. He didn't get it where he is by shooting off his mouth. He's not the kind of person to betray anyone. He's a lawyer. He's good at keeping secrets. Besides, he's got too much pride to allow himself to be just another tabloid headline. It's all right, Mercy. Warren patted me on the head. He hasn't left me yet. He will if you keep lying to him, I said. The two werewolves just looked at me. Warren loved Kyle and he was going to lose him because someone had decided that you had to be married before you told your spouse who you were, and if that wasn't a recipe for disaster. And I was pretty certain Kyle loved Warren too. Why else would he live in Warren's when he had a huge modern air-conditioned monstrosity with a swimming pool? And Warren was going to throw all of that away. I'm going for a walk, I announced. I hadn't had enough of werewolves for one day. I'll come back when Z calls. I wasn't as civilized as Kyle. I slammed the door behind me and started off down the sidewalk. I was so mad I almost walked right past Kyle, who was just sitting in his Jag staring straight ahead. Before I could think better of it, I opened the passenger door and slid in. Take us to Howard Almond Park, I said. Kyle gave me a look, but his lawyer face was on, so I couldn't tell what he thought, though my nose gave me all sorts of information of what he was feeling, angry, hurt, discouraged. What I was about to do was dangerous, no question, but it wasn't just a werewolf's obligation to obey his alpha, and kept Warren's mouth shut. If Kyle did start telling someone about werewolves, he would be silenced. And like me or not, if Adam or Bran found out that I was the one who told them, they'd silence me too. Did I know Kyle well enough to trust him with our lives? The Jag slid through the sparse Wednesday after-work traffic like a tiger through the jungle. Neither Kyle's driving nor his face gave any sign of the anger that had raised his pulse rate or the pain that fueled his anger, but I could smell them. He pulled into Howard Amon near the south end and parked the car in one of those empty spaces. There were a lot of empty slots. November is not a time when most people decide to head to a river park. It's cold, he said. We could talk in the car. No, I said, and got out. He was right. It was chilly, and the wind was mild that day, but the Columbia added moisture to the air, and I shivered in my coca-stained t-shirt, or maybe with nerves. I was going to do this, and I hope I wasn't wrong about Kyle. He opened the trunk of his car and pulled out a light jacket and put it on. He took out a trench, too, and handed it to me. Put this on before you turn blue, he said. I wrapped myself in his coat and the smell of expensive cologne. We were much of a size, so his coat fit fine. I like it, I told him. I need to get one of these. He smiled, but his eyes were tired. Let's walk, I said. I tucked my arm in his, leading him past an empty playground equipment. and into a path that ran along the river. Warren was right, I thought. Having Kyle know he was a monster might not help matters between them at all, but I had a feeling that today would be the final straw if someone didn't clue Kyle in. Do you love Warren? I asked. Not the good sex and great company kind of love. I mean the I'll follow you to death and beyond kind. It made me feel better that he paused before he answered. My sister Allie is one of the family I still talk to. I told her about Warren a few months ago. I hadn't realized until she mentioned it that I never told her about any of my other lovers. He put his hand over mine where it rested on his arm, warming it. My parents denied what I was for years, and when I finally confronted them about it, my mother set me up with yet another young woman with a good pedigree. My father disinherited me. My sister Allie called me as soon as she heard, but after that first conversation, we avoided talking about being gay. When I talk to her, I feel as if I have a scarlet letter sewn on my chest. We were both trying to print it and it's not there. He gave a bitter, angry laugh and changed subtly at the end. When he spoke again, his voice was subdued. Allie told me to bring him to visit. He looked at me and shared what the invitation meant to him. We set out at a fast pace, and the park had narrowed to a strip of lawn on either side of the path, and the riverbank exchanged its well-groomed look for a more natural growth of bushes and winter-yellowed knee-high grass. There was a metal porch swing set up on top of a rise, set to look out over the river, and I tugged him to it and sat down. It was so important to get this right. Now that time had come, and I was afraid I'd ruin everything. Swinging lazily, we watched over the water flow past us, almost black in the glowing shadows of the overcast sky. After a moment, he rubbed his face briskly to warm it, to wipe away incipient tears. God, he said, and I flinched. I'm not a vampire who can't bear to hear his name, but I don't like it being used in vain, and he continued, though I thought perhaps I hadn't been in vain at all. I love him. It sounded as though the words were ripped from his throat, but he won't let me in. People call in the middle of the night and he leaves without telling me where he's going. A lone bicyclist wearing a skin-tight uniform of the die-hard enthusiast appeared from the way we'd come. He passed us in a blur of spokes and Superman blue lycra. Nice legs, said Kyle. It was an old game, Kyle and I comparing notes on men while Warren pretended exasperation. I leaned my head against Kyle's shoulder. Too small, I don't like it when I outweigh my men. Kyle leaned back until he was looking at the sky rather than the river. When we were in Seattle last month, he drove away a group of drunken redneck gay bashers, and just scared them off with a few words. But that Daryl treats him like dirt, and Warren just puts up with it. I don't understand. And this stuff tonight, he sucked air into steel himself. Is he involved with drug? I shook my head quickly. No, nothing illegal, not yet anyway. Is he a fae then? He asked, as if it wouldn't bother him so much. Fae came out years ago. He snorted. You're not that dumb, and I know a few doctors and teachers who's still in the closet about being gay. And all they have to do is worry about losing their jobs, not having a group of idiots burn their houses down. I could feel him deciding Warren was fae, and his agitation dropped apprehensively. That would explain some things, like how strong he is and how he knows who's coming before he answers the door. Well, I thought feeling hopeful being fae wasn't quite the same as being a werewolf, but he could accept that one. Maybe the other wouldn't be too big of a stretch. He's not fae, I said. I started to tell him just what Warren was, but the words caught my throat. Warren should be the one telling me this, said Kyle. Right, I agreed, but he can't. You mean he won't? No, can't, I shook his head. I don't have many friends, I said. Not come over and eat popcorn and watch a stupid movie, friends. You and Warren are sort of it. Now, I don't have many girlfriends. My work isn't conducive to meeting other women. Pretty sad, Kyle commented. And he said, you and Warren are the only people I eat popcorn with, too. Pathetic, the banter helped. I drew a deep breath and said, Warren's a werewolf. A what? Kyle stopped the swing. A werewolf, you know, the moon called, run on 4 feet with big fangs kind of werewolf. He looked at me. You're serious? I nodded. And you're not going to breathe a word of it. Oh? That's why Warren couldn't tell you, because Adam, the pack alpha, forbade it. If you go out now and talk to the authorities or papers, even if they don't believe you, the pack will kill you. I knew I was speaking too fast, and I couldn't seem to slow down. In Warren's house with only Samuel and Warren, it hadn't seemed so dangerous. Samuel and Warren might care for me, but there were plenty of werewolves right here in town who'd be happy to see me and Kyle dead for just what I just told him. Warren will fight them, but there are too many of them. He'll die, and you'll die with them. Kyle held up a hand. Hold on. It's a little too soon for you to have Warren and me dead, don't you think? I took a deep breath. I hope so. You have to believe me on this. They take their secrecy very seriously. How do you think they've remained undetected for so long? Mercy, he caught his hand. His own felt cold. But that might have been just the wind. A werewolf? He didn't really believe me. That might be more dangerous. 20 years ago, no one believed in the Fae either. Look, I can prove it to you. I looked at the thicket of leafless bushes. They weren't really thick enough for me to strip and shift in, but there weren't any boats out on the water, and as long as we didn't get another biker at the wrong moment, I can just shift in my clothes. I get smaller, not bigger, but I'd rather be given a ticket for indecent exposure. A coyote in human clothes looks ridiculous. Wait here. I gave him a trench coat so it wouldn't get dirty, then hopped off the swing and waded through the old grass into the bushes. I took off my clothes as fast as I can and shifted as soon as I dropped the last piece of clothing. I stopped on the path and sat down, trying to look harmless. Mercy? Kyle had his lawyer face on, which told me how shocked he was. He really hadn't believed me. I wagged my tail and made a crooning noise. He got out of the swing like an old man and approached me. A coyote? He asked. When I went down to go get my clothes, he followed me. I shifted right in front of him, then scrambled back to my clothes as I heard another bicycle coming along. I'm not a werewolf, I told him, running my fingers through my hair, but I'm as close as you're going to get until you talk Warren into changing for you. Kyle made an impatient sound and pulled my hands away, rearranging my hair himself. Werewolves are bigger, I said, feeling as though I ought to warn him. A lot bigger, and they don't look like wolves. They look really, really big wolves who might eat you. Okay, he said, stepping back. I thought he was talking about my hair until he continued, Warren's a werewolf. I looked at his lawyer face and sighed. He couldn't tell you. If I tell you and you don't do anything stupid, and you and he are both safe. But if he told you, no matter how you reacted, he would have disobeyed a direct order of the penalty that is brutal. He still wasn't giving anything away. He was so closed off I couldn't sense what he was feeling. Most humans don't have that kind of control over themselves. Won't his pack? He stumbled over his words a little. Won't they think he told me? A lot of werewolves can smell a lie, I said. They'll know how you found out. He went back to the swing, picked up the trench coat and held it out for me. Tell me about werewolves. I was in the middle of trying to explain how dangerous a werewolf could be and why it wasn't a good idea for him to flirt with Samuel or Daryl when my cell phone rang. It was Z. Business? Kyle asked when I hung up. Yes, and I bit my lip. He smiled. It's all right. I think I've heard enough secrets for one day. I take it you need to go back to Warren's? Don't talk to him yet, I said. Wait for it to sink in. If you have other questions, you can call me. Thanks, Mercy. He wrapped an arm around my shoulder, but I think I need to talk the rest out with Warren after his business is finished.